You're listening to the Navigating Magic podcast. This is the portal where we illuminate ways to weave ancient wisdom with modern knowledge in order to help ground your experience in this lifetime. I'm your host, Natasha Andreo, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of my podcast. I have with us today a very special guest. Her name is Melissa Mellifont. She is a clinical nutritionist and a homeopath. Welcome, Mel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share with you today.
I'm so glad you're here. It's been months in the making of us going back and forth trying to team this up, but I think I always trust in the divine timing.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is the right timing. I have so much to share with you.
That's so good. I can't wait to get into it. Now, to start off with, I would love to know, because I know that you've mentioned a lot about your story through your Instagram, and you've had obviously such a big transformation in your own life, and now you are here being a pinnacle for so many others. I'd love for you to share with the listeners how you came across homeopathy.
Yeah, okay. So my journey started when I was a teenager, and I had a lot of different health issues throughout that time where my parents took me to different doctors, and no one could really help. It just boiled down to, well, you must be imagining it. Maybe you need a psychologist or antidepressants. And I think this is a really common story that a lot of young women especially have, where they're really truly not listened to. And then eventually my mum took me to an integrated doctor who does naturopathy and Chinese medicine. And within 3 weeks of following that treatment, she had found 8 centimeter cysts on my ovaries that during that treatment, in 3 weeks, they went away completely. I was just better than ever. And that sort of set me on my journey in natural medicine. And I went on to study nutrition. I was working in a health food store at the time next to a homeopath. And every time someone came in and they're like, I'm constipated, I need another supplement, would say, they're not constipated because they need another supplement. They're holding on to their anger and they need a remedy. And no one really wanted to use homeopathy at the time. But I was just learning, taking it all in. And so, yeah, I got my degree. Fast forward a few years and I had my baby. And this was 2.5 years ago now. And I had a really bad birth experience. And afterwards, I had PTSD because of just like ongoing pain and what had happened. And nothing would help. So it was again a whole year of going to different practitioners using nutrition and naturopathy and a lot of different natural modalities, but nothing was truly resolving it until I saw a homeopath. And so I took a remedy at about 14 months postpartum. And by 16 months, I could finally just breathe again and feel so much lighter and better. And then by 18 months, I had started my business. And here we are a year later. And it's just been the most wild journey. Yeah. And so that's what really showed me that we need homeopathy. We really need to get to the root cause and recalibrate our bodies, rebalance. And I know that's a bit of a long story,
No,
but
it's beautiful.
yeah, it's just was mind-boggling for me that so many women are struggling, and yet we have this incredibly powerful tool that is so affordable and so it can be so accessible if we make it that way. And that's sort of the direction we're heading.
Absolutely. And I think what is so intriguing about your particular story is, like you said, there would be so many other women in particular who could probably resonate with your story. I know that in Australia, especially, the birthing experience in hospitals, like they treat every birth like an emergency, and it is not an emergency. It is the most natural, most innate, most empowering thing any woman could ever go through. And so I can only imagine that, you know, like in every true hero's journey, you had to undergo that darkness And even though at the time you probably couldn't understand why it is that you were going through this, I bet you now you wouldn't trade that experience for anything, because it led to you where you are today.
Yeah, and it's so funny because, I arrived at the hospital at the time 9.5 centimeters dilated, and my husband and I were literally in tears, like, we've done it. Like, this is it. We're going to have the birth experience we want. Like, it's only up from here. But they push so hard for medical intervention and what they want and how they want you to birth. And so it was just sort of one thing after the other, and that cascade of intervention, and then also mistakes along the way. And I said at the time, I will never understand why this happened, and I will never be able to give it true meaning. I don't know how something good can come out of it. But that's when it was Natma, the remedy that I used. And when I could really let go of that anger and frustration, and see each event for how it was and allow my mind to process it, things just continued to get better. And now I can see how transformative it was for me.
It's so fascinating. One thing you touched on earlier is when you were working at the health food shop, how the homeopath next to you mentioned, they don't need more supplements. They need to let go of the anger that they're holding on to in regards to particular like constipation as the ailment. Now, we all know, like, well, not many people know, I should say, like, there should be more of an awareness about the connection between our emotions and what our body experiences, because it is the language of the subconscious mind. It's how our processing starts to make itself manifest in the physical through our bodies. So talk to me about the energetics of homeopathy and how, as a like a practitioner, you're able to find the right remedy at the right time for your patients.
So we do this through taking a really thorough case, and I'm really looking for a little gem in the case where someone's health has never been quite right since. Like, when I have initially talked to someone, they often will say, oh, I've had this all my life, or I've had this for as long as I can remember. But when I truly delve deep, there's often a trigger point. So perhaps they had a susceptibility, perhaps they were moving in that direction, but one experience, whether it be emotional or physical, has then triggered their body into this ailment or illness. And now I see this with UTIs a lot, actually. So often in a time of suppression, say an assault, or where a woman feels like she hasn't been in control of her own body, and that will be the trigger point for that UTI to occur and just chronically occur until we can actually resolve the trauma and allow the body to relax. And so, to go back to your question, finding like that energetics, it is really affecting the vital force. And with homeopathy, we're trying to recalibrate any imbalances that's being caused by particular events or exposures, so that it can just function optimally from there on.
That's incredible. And I can only imagine it can be very confronting for people to maybe hear, oh, you're experiencing X because of Y. I can only imagine so many women aren't necessarily ready to hear this, but when they've tried everything else, that's when homeopathy comes in.
Yeah, and I had a client who, I could tell that something like this had happened, and she had never disclosed it to anyone else. And actually, come to think of it, that's happened a few times where they've never spoken to anyone else about what's happened in their private life. Their husband, their mum, no one knew, until they come onto this healing journey and they so badly want to feel well and not be chronically ill. And they see that correlation, and they thought, oh no, I don't really think about it, I'm kind of over it. But they're not. It is there in their subconscious, and it does come up. Their body remembers. And once they start healing that, they just feel better than ever.
It's incredible. And
Mm.
like science now is only playing catch up to what I guess so many natural modalities have known for thousands of years. Like so many of these like natural remedies have been documented, like for like I know in Chinese medicine for thousands of years, and homeopathy is a couple hundred years old. So
Mhm.
it's so interesting that like from a Western medicine perspective, how many times it's letting people down.
Mm.
Think that it doesn't just upset me. I think it angers me because I've
Yes.
seen so many people around me fall because of it.
Yeah, and that's with those women that I mentioned. They had just been on antibiotics over and over again, and that's all that doctors can offer them. There's nothing else for them there. If the antibiotics don't work, well, we don't know what to do with you. And that's where homeopathy comes in. So
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing.
Like I've heard I think there's a meme floating around, something along the lines of, if your doctor doesn't ask about your sleep, about your environment, about your relationships, then you need a new doctor.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And unfortunately, most don't. So it's more like, well, you need a homeopath or a nutritionist or a naturopath.
yeah. And we are entering a new world now where I think because so many people have been let down. And once you find homeopathy, it is a whole new world. Like I know for us, when I had a really intense migraine, and I don't normally get migraines, and I had, I bought a kit, and my friend just said, just use the migraine blend. I popped a few drops in my water. I started drinking the water, and I was just working along, and I forgot that I had the migraine.
Yes,
Bring
I
her up.
love
Is
that.
it supposed to work this fast? She's like, yeah, that's how you know you've used the right remedy. It's like,
Yes.
holy moly.
I
My
had an
God.
experience, I shared it on my Instagram a few weeks ago where I don't get sick with like vomiting very often, but when I do, I'm like, I cannot cope with this. And I kept thinking to myself, no, it's so bad. What am I going to do? Like, I don't want to go looking for my remedies. I was just suffering. And then eventually I was like, no, I need to get up. I went and got my remedies. And then I was just telling myself, 15 minutes. If you can survive another 15 minutes, you will be fine. And it was actually only 10 minutes until it just completely lifted. I no longer had to be over the toilet bowl. I could get on with my night and just relax. And yeah, it was so good.
It's so inspiring because it's like, I just imagine what the world would look like if every single home had a first aid kit, at least a first aid kit.
Yes.
I'm a teacher, a secondary teacher, and I can't tell you how many times students are sick and it's like it's chronic and there's always the same
Mm.
culprits. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, taking sickies, that there's something actually wrong and it's just a repeat, especially in their senior years as their stress starts to pile on. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine what the world would look like. And I guess that's the mission now moving forward.
100%. I'm getting messages every single day from people that say, like, I'm so thankful that I bought your kit and my child had this and I was able to treat it at home and I didn't have to worry, and they feel empowered. And yeah, that is the goal for every family, to have a homeopathic first aid kit, because it seems and it feels like an investment when you have young kids and so many people are counting every dollar. But these families are saving so much in the long run. They don't have to go to hospital. They don't have to go down to the pharmacy and buy medication. They are empowered at home, and it works.
Yeah, it's funny how people think about the investment as, oh, it's a couple $100 to buy a kit, but in
Mm.
in hindsight, people don't calculate the time off work they have to
Mm-hmm.
take when their child is sick, the preschool fees that they're paying and their child's at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the prescriptions that the chemist runs, and that all piles up. And one round of antibiotics, I don't know, I'm assuming it's $20-$30.
Mm.
But one homeopathy little blend is $25, and that will last you years and years.
And if you purchase a kit, it works out to be like $12 a remedy.
Oh,
It's
wow.
so affordable. And then you can put it in your water so it lasts forever, in terms of, 2 drops in the water, and use that all throughout the day. So that will last you one illness. I know when my kids are sick, before I was using my homeopathic first aid kit, I'd go through a whole bottle of cough remedy in one illness. And that's easily over $30. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an affordable option.
Amazing. And what's so good is that, like, I think, you know, in every circumstance, in every scenario or subject area, life becomes our best teacher. You know, there are things they don't necessarily teach you at college or uni or wherever you're studying, because your present life becomes the best life experience.
That's
And
absolutely right. And if you dive in and truly believe in it and you're passionate, then that's what matters the most.
absolutely. And I guess what I love about like your page in particular is like you're constantly sharing these wins that you're having.
Thank
And
you.
the pivots that you need to make often, whether it
Yeah,
be
I
with
think
your
I
son
shared
or
at
your
the time
clients.
when I was sick, that time, and I shared that I took the remedy to heal it, and I felt like I was going to vomit. I also had a pounding headache, and everyone was so refreshed by me sharing. Like, at the forefront of my mind was, this is so bad, I should just take Nurofen. I should just down a Nurofen and then I'll be fine. But because I was brought up that way my whole entire life. And so when I'm really sick and vulnerable, that still comes up for me. That still comes up as like, that's what you reach for when you really need it. And I have to remind myself, even as a homeopath now, surrounded by remedies, I have to remind myself, like, no, that's not what I need to do. I need to support my body. My body is telling me something. And I took my remedies and I was completely fine in 10 minutes. I doubt I would even get that relief from a pharmaceutical medication.
Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting how we have been conditioned to
Mm,
reach for, you know, the over-the-counter drugs and, you know, all the available prescription meds that, you know, doctors hand out like candy.
mm-hmm.
It's a shift, but once you learn this, I don't think you could ever go back.
No, absolutely. That is true. And that's why I try to share it to remind parents, because they can get frantic and frazzled and fall back into old habits when they're first starting out, but we just have to retrain the mind and try a few times. And then once you've tried a few times and you see it working, you realize it's not a coincidence, because that's actually a message I get very often is, well, I took this remedy and then this happened. Do you think that's a coincidence? I know from my experience, it's not. It's never a coincidence. And that happens a lot when we're detoxing as well. People always think it's a coincidence.
Well, the meaning of the word, like coincidence, is to coincide, and that's two things meeting together. Like that's
Yes, that's also
synchronicity.
true.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love for you to share like an interesting case study you have where, you know, like, you know, I'll let you decide if you have
Mm,
any in mind. I'm sure there are
yeah.
plenty. It'll probably be hard to choose one.
I do. I have a few. I'll share one that I just recently met with the mum of two boys, and they're quite young, around 5 and 7, and they had quite bad reactions to their childhood immunization or vaccinations, like pharmaceutical vaccinations, where the first few days they were okay, but within 7 days they were sick, quite sick, and it took 2 to 3 months to recover. And then so the mums come to me to detox from them. And it's really interesting. I'll just share snippets of this, where one child had become anaphylactic to quite a few different foods. And then when we go and do the detox for the vaccination he had prior to that, immediately after taking it, he would get this itchy, scratchy throat. I also had on there runny nose and huge emotional outbursts. And the mum noticed this every time she gave the remedy. So within that 5 minutes, he would get that itchy nose, itchy throat and runny nose. And then on the weekend, when they would stop the detox, he wouldn't have that anymore. And he would feel so much better and have better behavior than he even did before she started the detox. And then the other child isn't prone to allergies, but is prone to other health issues. And what came up for him was a sore back. So he had this really aching back and actually the watery nose as well, and the emotional changes. And then again, fast forward to when you finish the detox, all of these symptoms go away and they're better than ever. And so for that mum who is really onto it, she really follows her intuition with her children. She can see what is going on and is so thankful that we're able to detox them, because it's really reducing the burden and the load that their body is under, so they can live a better life. So we're only about 3/4 of the way through each vaccination, but I'm really excited to see how their health continues to improve. So that was one that I'm just fascinated with in terms of their reactions.
So I'm curious, could the mother relate the flare-ups that came up after the homeopathy to, like, if she were to remember when they had their childhood vaccinations, was there a similarity?
Yeah, there was a similarity to some, and others there wasn't. Like they had, for example, the anaphylaxis kicked off around, like, after a few of the vaccinations, but then it was the MMR where they had a really strong reaction. So it just is so variable, and they're sort of getting, it's interesting. I'm finding with the vaccinations, it's like no matter which one you had a reaction to at the time, you get a similar detox response to the remedy that we're giving to any of the vaccinations. And I think that's because of the overall burden and excipients that are in there, like the heavy metals. Yeah, so that's really interesting too.
And is that like a signification that it's working?
Yes, absolutely. So with a homeopathic remedy, if the remedy cannot find resonance in the body, it means that the body was not disturbed by that initial exposure. So if there's no reaction at all to the detox remedy, we know that the body wasn't affected by that vaccine at the time.
Yeah.
And that's the same when you're treating acutely in your home as well. If you use a homeopathic remedy out of your first aid kit and you don't get an effect, then you've chosen the wrong remedy and you just need to try again and match the symptoms up.
Yeah. It is a bit of trial and error, especially when you're self-diagnosing.
100%. And it's all a learning journey. And I think it's part of that retraining our brain as well, because if we're thinking to ourselves, oh, my child has croup, what remedy should I give for croup? That's not how homeopathy works. There's no one single remedy for croup, but there is a remedy for a wheezing cough with green snot, for example. Like if we can match the exact symptoms, that's where we get amazing effects.
Interesting. So I know you mentioned detoxing from childhood vaccinations. Dare I go there to the big question?
Big C.
I know I've had a lot of followers ask me, how can we detox from the big C?
Yeah, so that's something that I've been working on a lot over the past 6 months. And again, we have it in a homeopathic remedy, which is so incredible. And so that's what we use to detox from it. I'm a little bit unconventional in terms of, I feel like, and the way that I treat is to use nutritional support as well. So I'm supporting with any nutrients that are really needed based on an individual basis of what each body needs. And then we add in that COVID detox remedy. Can I say that on here? You might have
Yes.
to. And I'll tell you a case study about that actually. So it only takes a few weeks, and it's taking a remedy, depending on your case, it might be once a day or it might be once every few days. It is so easy and simple, which is awesome. And again, we can see these clearing, healing symptoms throughout the detox, like a sore back, a scratchy throat, or a bit of a cough, which is very, very common as the body recalibrates. And then one of my most amazing success stories of a client was that she was having heart palpitations and pain twice a week ever since she had the CV. And this was causing huge anxiety for her because her mother actually passed away from a heart attack a few years ago. And she's on Instagram as well. She's a student naturopath, the Botanical Wellness, and she's amazing. But since she's taken the COVID detox, she hasn't had any heart palpitations. Her anxiety has gone away and she's just in awe of it. And I'm like, we've really, truly changed the trajectory of her life. And that's what homeopathy is doing. And that was only with the COVID detox. That was no classical prescription, no change to any other area of her life. She only needed that one. So that was pretty incredible.
Well, I hope for anyone listening, if this is something that you'd love to explore, please reach out to Melissa, because this is just, it's blowing my mind, because there are so many people who they have obvious, very obvious links to post vaccine ailments and just, you know, just disturbances in their body.
Absolutely.
That we can make the link. There's no other way about it. And it's so much needed now, because I know that, you know, what I really love about what you said, and it's so interesting. I had Kaylee Mason on a podcast last week. She's a nutritionist, originally from Canada, and she's a big advocate for, yes, detoxing is good, but you need to replenish the body with the right vitamins, with the right minerals. And that's what I really love about your practice, is that you are looking at the, like it takes a holistic approach to a whole new level.
Absolutely.
You're not just saying this is all you need to do, you know, good luck to you. You're looking at the lifestyle factors, and nutrition plays a really good role, and an important role in your body. And they say the food in your plate is either your best medicine or your poison.
Absolutely. And homeopathy cannot outdo a bad diet and lifestyle. There's no remedy, supplement, herb that is going to do that for you. So we really do have to look at people, the in-depths and their life and them as an individual. And I am all for including all modalities in it. But I truly believe that homeopathy is the missing piece to the puzzle. And that's what it all comes back to, because we all come back to that energetics. We all come back to whether we have disturbances or like predispositions for different illnesses, and we can overcome that and we can move forward and we can truly heal at a deeper level. So I love that.
It's just amazing. I can only imagine in, I wouldn't say one generation, probably in 2 generations time, like by the time we have grandkids, hopefully it's going, like the world and like medicine and healing and self-empowerment, how that's going to look very different for them to compared to like our generation when we were growing up.
Well, I think that in some ways we have been really blessed to create this turn of a century, and possibly even more than a century, but it's a true turn to healing. And I don't know if it's just the world that, say, you and I are in terms of our healing journey, but it feels like everyone is coming in with us and we're so well supported. We're healing so many people every week. And I hear a lot about marketing, as I'm sure you do in business, and there's an aspect of teaching people what they need and pointing out their pain points and pointing out how we can help. But as I always say, well, thank you to the government who did that for us for 3 years, because now so many families have been transformed and being pushed into natural medicine, and it's actually turned out to be a huge blessing for them.
Oh, absolutely. And like many of the listeners know, I'm an astrologer, and the astrology is speaking to exactly this. We currently have what we call Pluto, who's a generational planet, and he's just shifted into the zodiac sign of Aquarius. And this, you know, for the layman, this means that like Aquarius is all about freedom, revolution, sense of community, and having these networks and these hubs. And this is exactly what homeopathy is creating. And it's, I can only imagine homeopathy being one, you know, little lens of this. There'll be like homeschooling hubs, you know, growing your own food hubs, and cooking and swapping and you know, harvesting. It's just incredible.
I'm so looking forward to that, and I love it. I actually swap my services with quite a lot of different practitioners, and my husband is a plumber and he does the same, but he swaps services to, you know, different businesses we already use and love. And it works out to be the best commodity and creates such a sense of community. So I so encourage everyone to get onto that as well, because we're taking a step forward. And I think our healing journey is really catapulted when we can connect with others and feel that support and love.
It's so interesting when we take out the value of money and we replace it with energy. It's the most
Yes.
perfect energy exchange.
Yes, absolutely. And your astrology always is spot on with what's going on in my life and those around me. So I am all trusting in that too.
I'm so glad. Well, I'm
Yeah.
currently studying medical astrology.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And
so
that's
you shared that the other day about the illnesses that have connections with like our emotions and our heart, and my followers were loving it. And it's definitely something I would love to include more in my practice. Well, I
yeah.
do in some ways in homeopathy.
Yeah, it's just but once you see it, once you understand, it just takes for you to understand the correlation, and it's just like mind opening. You go, okay. And I think asking ourselves the right questions, like I think society is just where the way with the inflation, mortgage prices, it's driven us to be a bit disconnected from our own lives, from our own
Mhm,
sense of well-being.
mhm,
But what I find with the emotional side of healing is that once you understand what it is that your body is trying to communicate, and you ask yourself the right questions,
mm,
that can of worms becomes it becomes the avenue towards your healing.
yes.
But I don't think as a collective, not enough people are ready yet.
No, and some people truly don't find the time and space to listen to their body. And if you're following along on my stories, I shared I took my husband to our chiropractor because he finally has come to a point in life where he has the capacity to focus on his own healing. And that's something that we're prioritizing now. And something he said during his treatment was, wow, I can feel my leg. And I was
Oh,
like he just, and I think that's how a lot of people are living. He's like, I live like my body either hurts or it doesn't. And there's no in between. There's no conscience to his body. There's no connection. And we have to be connected to our body to be able to listen to those small symptoms before they become huge ones. Because if we allow them to progress to huge yelling signs, that's when chronic disease will manifest. So we need to be listening back down when it just has little whispers, little tiny aches and pains, little tiny inches towards something, and start on our healing journey.
that's so incredible. And you're speaking like a true Virgo moon.
Always.
It's such a grounding exposure to the healing modality. Like I can only imagine your reaction when your husband said that, and
Mm-hmm.
how like just making that correlation between how you were living and what the new
Mm-hmm.
looks like.
Exactly right. And I've been on a high for the whole week since he went in because I'm so excited to finally have that opportunity to be able to focus on him and to have that because it was definitely, especially as a healer in my practice, it was always in the back of my mind that if he doesn't start prioritizing that and doesn't have that shift, our future will be very dire.
Mm.
Because it all comes back to our body. Like our mind and our spirit is so, so important to look at. But if we're not taking care of our physical being to get us around and keep us going, then we also have nothing. So it's a combination of everything.
Mm.
And for him, he needs to start noticing and feeling. So that's actually a really good takeaway for anyone that's listening as well. If they're not paying attention to their body, if they're not connected, if they don't truly know what's going on, start listening. Just reach out to one person at a time. Don't listen to everything that's online and feel like you need to change your whole life. Just start with one practitioner or one little change in your life because that's where the healing starts. And it's a cascade from there into the good.
Of course.
Mm,
It's like you don't realize the value of your health until it's gone.
that's
Like,
exactly
and the
right.
thing is, it's like more people need to start investing in their health
Mm-hmm.
before you're forced
Mm-hmm.
to
That's
spend money on your
absolutely
health.
true. And you know, if we're focusing on that even more, I always say, like, you have to have some leeway. To just be getting by is not enough, because if there's like the cherry on top could be the breaking point of your body. So we need to be strong and robust. And, you know, this goes through every generation, I think. Like for our children, for example, we need to be allowing them to have these amazing, strong immune responses and fevers. And, you know, none of us are perfect. So we just do the best we can, make good choices where we can to allow for the unexpected as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you had any advice for mums out there in particular, what would you what would you want them to know? Or if you could go back in time, what would you want someone to let you know as a new mum?
You know best. That's definitely what I would say, is you truly do know best. So listen to yourself, listen to your intuition. Most of what you see online is not accurate and not real life. And I would like to share with you that a lot of the people that are so big on sharing their life and appearing to be these amazing, perfect mothers that do everything right, as time goes on, I slowly get to know them. I see them outside of it. I hear things, I see things, and no one is. No one is better than you if you are doing your best. And I'm fully aware that not everyone is doing their best. But if you are here listening, you are here learning, I know that you are. And so just listen to your intuition, take care of your child as they are and as they present to you, and just stay calm and know that you're equipped to do it. You don't need to be looking to the outside. There is nothing wrong with your child. There is nothing wrong with you. It just is, and you'll get through, and it'll be amazing, and it only gets better with time. The older children get, I love them even more. And remember, you're creating a whole person for their whole entire life. We don't need to be so caught up on, you know, these next few years, or thinking that that's the biggest deal in the world. Like my husband reminds me all the time, I'm not so caught up on how the next 10 years go, because I've got another 80 years with my children.
Oh,
You know, they've got their whole life ahead of them, and we're all in it together.
that is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder, because mums can get so caught up in the now and whether they should do this or maybe they should do that, or what does this person say or that person say. And when we just remind ourselves, like, what do we want our children to be like as they grow up? We really want to love them and be around them and enjoy their company. And so we're focused on that.
You touch on something really important that I'd like to unpack for a while, about
Mm.
the sense of authenticity.
Mm.
You know, it's become very apparent that when certain profiles, and I think social media just adds to this, is
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, the appearance isn't what you see behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
And I think more and more people now are being exposed
Mm-hmm.
for not showing up in their true authentic selves. And then what happens is that, like, mental health starts to play a role in our lives, because there's this sense of comparison, an imposter syndrome that has a barrage of effects.
And I think taking people down from a pedestal and realizing that every single person is human as well is really important. So when we look at someone who might have this amazing business online, we just have to remember that perhaps that was luck. Perhaps they're a really good business person. It doesn't mean they're doing amazing at every area of their life. And perhaps they're not able to show up as a mother in the same way that you are, or as a partner in the same way that you are. Everyone has their strengths, and we need to not compare at all. So I do try to give a realistic view on my life and share the hardships as well. And even making an effort to do that, I have people tell me that it still doesn't come across. It still seems like it's easy and effortless online. And so just let that be a reminder as well. Like, even when we share hardships, it won't always come across. And so as a viewer, we need to remember that we're never seeing the full story.
That's such an important point you make.
Mm.
So empowering.
And so I think about a lot of platforms, and on one hand, we may choose to blame them for not sharing enough. And on the other hand, it is often a business account. Like, we've moved from personal profiles and chatting to each other to most big profiles on like platforms, they're businesses. And no, then they're not going to share every hardship that they go through, because it's all a transaction and it's a business and usually financial one.
Nailed it right there.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's derailed and off topic, but I think that that's just so important for mums to see. I often say to people in my DMs, because they're always asking me, I don't know who made up this whole kids should sleep through the night and be perfect and motherhood's glamorous and put your kid in a carrier and you'll be able to run a business and you'll be able to do this, that, and the other. I mean, there's a reason why I wasn't back in my business until 18 months postpartum. And that's because it's really tough.
Yeah.
And we need to focus on our children, and they are truly important.
Hats off to you for being really vulnerable.
Thank you.
Because I can only imagine, like, it is pretty hard to unpack and digest and like to process this, let alone share snippets of this extremely personal and private part of your life with others.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I feel that some people have, like, when I personally had such a hard time, it was almost to the point that it felt like a true reason and my calling and my meaning to share and be there for other mums.
Amazing. So everyone needs a first aid kit, a homeopathy.
Absolutely. So everyone needs to get a homeopathic first aid kit if you want to be able to heal your family and be there. If you don't want to be stressing out, running to the pharmacy, going to the emergency room, you need a first aid kit. If you're affected by vaccinations of any type, or any other medication where you feel like I've just not felt right since then, you also don't have to keep suffering. You don't have to keep on feeling guilty. Or if you've chosen not to vaccinate and you want support with that, I can help with all of that. So I think that's a huge point of difference in my business, is no matter which journey you're on, there's an option for you, and I can support you and make you feel more comfortable with your family's healing.
Prepare for an influx of people lining up at your door.
Yes, I am very excited. I'm here waiting for you.
I genuinely thank you so much for your time and energy and input, and for sharing not only your personal vulnerabilities, but some client wins that you've had, or patient wins, I should say. It's so inspiring, and it's really setting us off on this new path. So can you please let the listeners know how let them know how they can find you? Where are you at?
I am at Healing Home and Body on Instagram. That's my handle, and also at healinghomeandbody.com. So that's my website, either Instagram or my website, and I am ready to help you.
Beautiful. Make sure you reach out to Melissa, and I thank you so much, Mel.
Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate it.
Wherever you're listening from, if you can give us a review and a 5-star rating, that would be so helpful in supporting this podcast. If this lights you up and inspires you in any way, then please make sure that you share this episode with others and reach out to me and let me know. I'm beyond grateful and blessed to call this work. Together, we learn, grow, and evolve. Staying anchored in your heart means staying anchored to your humanity. All my love, Natasha.